Welcome to the Imagine Learning Inquiry Orientation Series, made in partnership with Kathy Swan and the Making Inquiry Possible team, designed to help you make inquiry possible in your classroom. I'm Krista Talbot, a former middle school social studies teacher. I'll be drawing on my 20 years of experience in the classroom as I guide you through this process. This orientation series is a set of 3 courses designed to break down the mysteries of inquiry. We'll provide you with manageable steps, an easy checklist, and a viewer inquiry challenge that will help you create an exciting and engaging inquiry-based classroom. At the heart of this video is the Making Inquiry Possible project. This series of documentary films shows teachers working together to explore the why, the who, and the how of inquiry-based instruction. In order to set the stage for inquiry, it's essential to have students drive the questions. In part 1, where does inquiry begin? We'll follow Summer Amro, a 9th and 10th grade social studies teacher in Kentucky, as she works to create a culture of collaboration and student agency in her classroom.
Guys, listen for me. Someone's fuzzy. Okay. Well, here's what we're gonna do. When I say go, stand up, raise your hand, walk somewhere on the other side of the room, okay? And I want you to find a partner. Once you find a partner, you put your hand down, okay?
The way that I present it to my students when I first say, what does inquiry mean? It's just what they tell me right away. The ones that have heard the word, questioning. But using the word questioning in education a lot of times means the questioning that's happening from the teacher and the questions that the teacher is asking. Inquiry is questions that are student-driven. The student is the one who's going to find the answer to that question, and sometimes the one that's creating that question. But that term of inquiry is questioning through investigation, asking questions and investigating to find the answer, to come to a conclusion. And so that's kind of how I pose it to my students, and that's exactly what it is. A lot of them have learned that school is taking notes or reading something, answering questions, and turning it in and being done. So you almost have to reteach that process of, okay, well, we're gonna do things differently in here. So there is resistance along the way to a lot of those, but the more times I've done inquiry in the class, the less I've seen that. And again, every class is different.
Where does inquiry begin? For Ms. Amro and her class, the answer is with questioning. Instead of questions starting with the teacher and trickling down to the students, inquiry begins with students not only asking the questions, but driving the conversation that follows. By establishing an inquiry-based classroom, Ms. Amro allows her students to move away from the memorization of dates and facts that we're used to seeing in social studies, and puts them in the driver's seat of creating collaborative spaces. Nice, but not easy, right? Many teachers are accustomed to leading the class and guiding the conversation. Let's watch Ms. Amro reflect on the power of student agency.
When I think back to my early experiences of implementing inquiry, something that I would probably look back and cringe about would be, I remember one time I was implementing an inquiry and the compelling question is, what's new about the immigration policy debate? And I remember being very nervous to open up conversations between my students about the topic of immigration. And so what I did to try and avoid that was I tried to control like everything about the inquiry. The way I implemented it was way too teacher-centered. And when I think back on that now that I'm comfortable and now that I know how to establish a positive classroom culture and make it so that it's okay to have tough conversations in my classroom, that would have sparked such good conversation, because that's an issue that a lot of students have experience with or have heard about a lot in the news about any kind of immigration policy debate. And inquiry works a lot better when you just let the students go with it, and when you aren't afraid of what someone might say But as long as you establish that it's okay, we're going to disagree, but that doesn't mean we have to be mean to one another. It's very productive and it's a great experience for the students. So I would look back on that and I would wish that I would have put more in the hands of the students.
Inquiry works when you let the students just go with it. Sounds great, right? But maybe a little scary too. As a veteran teacher, I know we all have a natural, maybe subconscious fear of losing control of the classroom. But Ms. Amro's experience shows us that a safe classroom culture encourages healthy debate and student agency. So, how do we do this? First, by building a consistent routine. Structure every lesson in the same overall format so the process becomes familiar to the students. Second, establish guidelines for discussion early on. It's okay to disagree, but arguments must be supported with evidence. This important skill encourages students to construct a response based on credible sources. Letting students lead can be scary, but the rewards are worth it. Watch as Ms. Amro realizes the impact of an inquiry-based culture, not just on her classroom, but on the entire school community.
But I think it's very important at some point in any inquiry to have lots of collaboration, because if students are just sitting on their own, completing a task on paper or on their computer, and they're not talking to anyone about it, it's a lot more limiting. I say every class is different, but getting a class to the place where they're comfortable to have conversations about things is so important to being able to implement inquiry. Because for me, a lot of why I love inquiry so much and why I love to implement it in my classes is because it sparks conversation. It turns social studies into not just, I'm gonna tell you what is and you're gonna memorize it and repeat it back to me, but it's a conversation. That's why it's so important to have students be able to collaborate, bounce ideas off one another. When it comes to argumentation, having students be able to do that in the classroom helps to build a positive school culture overall.
Author and educator Kathy Swan says that social studies and inquiry are training for life. We're preparing our youngest citizens to take on their role in a democratic society. So, yes, going from being the sage on stage to the guide on the side can feel scary. But ultimately, it's an essential step in creating an inquiry-based classroom. Through consistent routines and structures, we can build a new classroom culture based on collaboration and student agency, setting students up for success. This orientation will consist of manageable steps that will challenge you as an educator either to start your inquiry journey or to continue building what you have in place. We invite you to share how you are building inquiry in your school or classroom and changing the way we teach social studies, one step at a time. Using what you've learned in this inquiry orientation, I challenge you to chart your instruction. How much time do you hold the reins, and how much time do students have to wrestle with an idea? Take even one class. Is it 50-50, 25 minutes of you talking and 25 minutes of student activity, 75-25? And then reflect. Am I holding on too tight? Do students have enough time to find their way? By beginning with these simple steps, you're making monumental strides to build an inquiry culture that will have a lasting impact for you and, most importantly, for your students.